Thank you all, and apologies for the technical difficulties. We will get going here in just a minute. Give a few more folks a chance to join. Yeah, I still see the numbers popping up, so we'll wait one more minute. Hey, good morning. Let's get started. Welcome to the Regulatory Alignment Study Update and an informational webinar. I'd just like to welcome you all on behalf of CDFA, Cal EPA, and the water boards. This is a collaborative project. So just a couple housekeeping items. As a participant, you're muted and not broadcasting video. If you have questions, you can enter them into the Q&A function about webinar content. And we took out the chat part. So yeah, if you have any technical issues, also enter them in the chat and just say this is a technical issue, and we'll try to address that right away. We will be addressing questions at the very end. I'd like to turn it over to Christine Birdsong, CDFA Undersecretary, for some welcoming remarks.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Boy, I sure didn't do my hair this morning. I'm looking at that picture of myself. And anyways, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. CROW will be hosting 2 webinar sessions, one today, and the next one will be tomorrow, May 30th, to introduce the proposals for regulatory alignment and to kick off this summer's interactive workshop series. So today, our CROW staff partners will describe some key study updates, and they're going to give us information on the release of the regulatory alignment concept paper. And they are going to outline the objectives and goals for the workshop sessions coming up throughout May, June, and July. The regulatory alignment study is a very important collaborative effort by CDFA, Cal EPA, and the State Water Resources Control Boards. I want to thank our partners at all of these agencies who have been working really hard and taking a lot of staff time to provide the context and the information needed to put together this report. So huge thank you to our partners. I know it's going to be a benefit to the stakeholders that we all share. We are all committed to the success of this effort and in meeting the goals of regulatory alignment. The CROW team has done extensive research and outreach to find proposals that are meant to improve, streamline, and align the regulatory programs and the requirements that are in the scope of the study. They will introduce the regulatory alignment concept paper, which provides the details on their initial proposals. I want to emphasize that the proposals in the concept paper and presented today are just a starting point for further discussions. These are not CROW's final recommendations. The outcomes of the study are expected in 2025 and will be the result of a multi-year effort, which is already into the second year now, I believe, to identify any and all regulatory alignment opportunities and improved reporting processes. CROW invites all interested parties to review the concept paper and provide feedback on the proposals. We encourage you also from CDFA, and I'll say from Cal EPA and the water boards as well, please do provide your feedback. It's very important and very helpful. To wrap things up at the end of the presentation, we'll give some direction on how to register for the upcoming workshops, how to stay involved with the study, and also, again, how to provide your most valuable feedback. So we're really happy to have you all here today, and we look forward to this next phase of this study. Thank you all for your partnership. I'll turn it back to you now, Wendy.
All right, thank you very much. Just a quick introduction of the CROW team that will be talking today. Myself, Wendy Pratt, I'm serving as a project advisor on this engagement. Tommy Abeda is the project manager, and Jamie Hammond is a senior analyst. And we will be sort of guiding you through the content today. So what we'd like to do is spend just a few moments on the study background and objectives and just sort of level set on what we've done to date and sort of the next steps going forward, and really focus on the concept paper and providing you a bit of an overview that we hope will facilitate your further participation in the workshops and your ability to provide feedback and sort of dig into the information. There is a lot of information. There are a lot of proposals to look at and to wrap your mind around. So we wanted to sort of provide this overview to get everybody thinking about it. We'll also introduce the workshops and the timing and how to register for that, and then provide some information on next steps, study roadmap, and hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. If we don't have time to answer all the questions, we will provide and even if we do, we will provide a Q&A document on the study webpage. So overall for the study, as Secretary Birdsong mentioned, this is a multi-year effort. We are really about halfway through. The study began in November of 2022. CDFA contracted with CROW and our partners Blankenship and Associates to identify opportunities for regulatory alignment and improved reporting processes. So really throughout 2023, there was a lot of learning, listening, and research. We evaluated and mapped 80 different regulatory requirements and processes and conducted 70 listening sessions with members of the ag community and with Water Board and CDFA staff. We brought all that information together and into a number of proposals that we'll be talking about that are now in the concept paper that we'll be evaluating for prioritization and further refinement and developing recommendations. So that's sort of through the rest of this year, we'll be doing the listening sessions and gathering additional input on the proposals. And then by late 2025, we will be providing CDFA, Cal EPA, and the water boards with proposed implementation plans, technological enhancement recommendations, sort of prioritized list of recommendations. So the scope of the study is really focused on food safety and water quality. And we recognize there are a lot of other areas, regulatory programs that apply to the agricultural community, but at this point, we are focused on food safety and water quality. So specifically for food safety, the emphasis is on the Produce Safety Program, which is federal program, the Food Safety Modernization Act, and applying to covered products. There are a number of subparts, as you can see, that are within the scope of the project, including the subpart E on agricultural water, and that was just recently in the last, I think, few weeks finalized by the FDA. On the water safety side, we have three programs that are in the focus of the study: the Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program, ILRP, the Confined Animal Facilities Program, CAF, and the State Winery Order. So that's the general order overall for the state. So project goal, as sort of we've mentioned, is to identify transformative opportunities for regulatory alignment and improved reporting processes that reduce the costs and the reporting and compliance needs for farmers and ranchers, but also maintains environmental and public health protections. So there are 5 objectives, and these were outlined in the request for proposal that CROW first responded to before we were contracted for this work, and they also shape the tasks that we've been going through. So the 2 green check marks indicate the first 2 objectives, which are completed. The first was evaluating the regulatory requirements of water quality and food safety, and really sort of understanding the scope and the impact of various requirements. And then the series of listening sessions that we conducted throughout last year with the ag community and with the program managers. And so now we are really in the third objective of convening the agricultural community and regulators to evaluate and look at the existing regulatory pathways and identify opportunities for improvement. We'll be compiling the information that we gather at these listening sessions and prioritizing the proposals, refining them, developing implementation plans for the recommended improvements, and then finally coming up with final recommendations for CDFA, Cal EPA, and the water boards for technological enhancements to streamline regulatory, administrative, and reporting processes. When we talk about the agricultural community, we recognize that is broad, and we are using the term quite broadly. You can see the 9 boxes here, which is not even really an exhaustive list, but ranging from the agricultural operators, researchers, regulatory partners, communities, tribes, coalitions, et cetera. So a very broad scope when we are looking at this study. So at this point, I want to turn it over to Tommy Abeda, and he's going to introduce the concept paper.
Thanks, Wendy, and thanks for everyone that was able to attend today's webinar. I'm going to present on kind of the key information that we've outlined within the regulatory alignment concept paper. So as mentioned, CROW has developed the concept paper in coordination with CDFA, Cal EPA, and water boards. The concept paper is a document that outlines our initial proposals, specifically regulatory pathways to support regulatory alignment within the 4 regulatory programs that are in the scope of the study. We see this concept paper as being a foundational document to obtain additional input from interested parties on the specific proposals outlined in the document. As mentioned, it's critical just to reinforce that the document does not include specific implementation plan components, nor does it reflect our final recommendations. We will be moving towards development of implementation plans and recommendations in subsequent project milestones. In terms of the development of the paper, as mentioned, it really reflects the work that we've been conducting almost over the course of the last year and a half. Critical to it was at the very onset of the study was to really identify the scope of the requirements and the programs that are within the areas of food safety and water quality. In terms of our evaluation of those regulatory requirements that we identified that were in scope, we did conduct a number of sessions with CDFA and water board subject matter experts. Those really served as critical for CROW to really understand kind of the day-to-day and strategic elements of implementing those regulatory programs, and to really understand, what are some of the potential pain points from an implementation standpoint for those various regulatory programs and the requirements. Additionally, we've mapped 80 distinct processes across the programs in scope of the study. And for reference, those processes, those process maps are on the study's website. But really, those kind of illustrate all of the key inputs and outputs that are really critical to the various aspects of the programs and the regulatory requirements that we've looked at. And so the process maps really were foundational and helped us really understand, okay, what does this look like from a starting point to the end point to prepare a specific component of the requirement, or to submit a report, or to interface with a number of program staff. So really those process maps really help clearly identify where there may be opportunities for streamlining. In addition, last summer, we spent our time listening and learning from folks within the ag community. And as Wendy mentioned, really we kind of see the ag community within the context of this study as being not just, one entity, but a number of entities that all come together that really support the industry, and then also implement and carry out the various regulatory programs. Really, our goal for those listening sessions was to listen and learn, but to really understand experiences and to identify opportunities. We really wanted to understand and get ground level insights. And then additionally, we built on our evaluation of the regulatory requirements and continue to engage with program staff to continue our work within this area. In terms of the structure of the concept paper, really we see it having three goals. The first is to empower the ag community through streamlined regulatory requirements. The second is to support the state's data and information collection efforts. The third is to strengthen protections to human health and the environment. And so these are really our guiding goals for the foundation of the paper. Additionally, within each of the various programs that we outline proposals, we have 4 focus areas. The first is data and information sharing. The second is efficiencies. The third is effectiveness. And the 4th focus area is equity. So what do these focus areas really mean? In terms of data and information sharing, we're looking at streamlining opportunities to improve the exchange of selected data and information between the various state regulatory agencies and programs. In terms of efficiencies, we've identified opportunities to simplify and expedite regulatory, administrative, reporting, and compliance processes. In terms of effectiveness, we've identified opportunities to measure regulatory performance objectives and goals. And within the equity focus areas, we've identified opportunities to ensure the inclusion of socially disadvantaged communities, farmers, and ranchers in the development, implementation, and enforcement of regulations. So in essence, the goals and the focus areas provided us with some structure to really outline opportunities for further review by you all on the call and others that will be interested in reviewing and providing additional input on potential streamlining opportunities within the areas of food safety and water quality. In terms of the actual proposals that you'll see in the paper, we've identified nearly 50 proposals across the 4 program areas. These include specific opportunities, including detailed options underneath each opportunities. And then we also identify supporting rationale in terms of how each proposal supports regulatory alignment. In terms of a breakdown of what you'll see in the paper, for the produce safety program, we've identified 12 proposals. For the irrigated lands regulatory program, we've identified 16 proposals. For the confined animal facilities program, we've identified 10 proposals. And then last but not least, for the state winery order section, we've outlined 8 proposals. Within the produce safety program, the 12 proposals really identify a number of opportunities and specific ones that are aimed to facilitate the streamlining of continued outreach and education, streamlining of development of a comprehensive farm inventory. Another example would be the farm verification, re-verification processes, risk prioritization model, inspection process, in coordination with third parties, other CDFA programs, and water boards' water quality programs. One thing to note as I'm detailing these various examples of what you'll find in the paper in terms of efforts to streamline these different components is that many of the programs are already in the process of either evaluating or implementing some of these aspects or some of these examples of streamlining. But really within the paper, you'll notice that some of these support advancement or continuation of existing work that the various programs are already doing. So just wanted to make sure that that was clear in terms of what you see and what you'll be reviewing in the concept paper. Within the irrigated lands regulatory program proposals, we've identified, as mentioned, 16 proposals. And some of the examples include streamlining of continued outreach and education, database integration and functionality streamlining, reporting and data collection processes, data analysis and program evaluation processes, inspection and feedback processes, and then further coordination with the water quality coalitions, CDFA programs, and other water board water quality programs and regulatory agencies. The proposals for the confined animal facility program facilitate the streamlining of outreach and education. I'm sure you'll noticing a trend here. Management of excess nutrients, reporting and data collection processes, data analysis and program evaluation processes, inspection and feedback process, and further coordination with third parties, CDFA programs, other water board water quality programs, and regulatory agencies. Within the state winery order proposals, we've identified 8 regulatory pathways. Examples of these include opportunities to further streamline the enrollment process and overall transition to the state winery order. Streamlining of reporting and data collection processes, data analysis and program evaluation processes, and again, coordination with CDFA programs and other water board water quality programs and regulatory agencies. So overall, these just give you some flavor in terms of the examples of streamlining areas that you'll find in the paper. Again, we're working under those 3 goals that I've described within the concept paper, and then nested under those goals will be 4 focus areas to really provide some structure and a systematic framework to further advance regulatory alignment for these 4 programs that are in scope of the study. With that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Jamie, who's going to give you some information on moving forward.
Thanks, Tommy. At this point, we will be going over the upcoming public workshops that will be held throughout summer 2024. In these public workshops, CROW invites all interested parties, including program staff, to participate. The goal of the workshops is to gather input and comments that will help further define opportunities to streamline regulatory alignment and support the development of recommendations, process improvements, and implementation plans as part of the study. The workshops will take place throughout June and July and will focus on review of the proposals outlined in the concept paper. As mentioned, the goal of the workshops is to gather feedback and input on concept paper proposals, understanding the following 5 objectives here on the slide. So the first is around effectiveness of proposals and understanding whether the proposals meet the regulatory alignment goals as laid out in the concept paper. The second objective is understanding any implementation challenges and opportunities. Any specific examples that participants can provide around this would be helpful to the CROW team in understanding the feasibility of proposals from various perspectives. The third objective of the workshops is on unaddressed needs or gaps. This includes areas not currently addressed by the proposals, while still keeping in mind the overall scope of our study, which is confined to those 4 program areas, as Tommy mentioned. Objective 4 is on equity and inclusivity and how the proposals may impact different groups within the agricultural community, including small-scale and socially disadvantaged growers or community members. And finally, we look forward to hearing any suggestions for improvements of the proposals to better meet the needs of the participants. The workshops are meant to be an interactive forum for all interested parties and provide, so participants can provide input on the proposals outlined in the concept paper. In terms of planning for the workshops, we ask that before the workshop, attendees review the regulatory alignment concept paper and/or the executive summary for detailed information on the proposals that CROW will be discussing during the session. Access to the paper and related documents can be found again at the study's website at cdfa.ca.gov/regulatory alignment. As part of the workshop session, Crow will be walking through each of the proposals by program area and gathering questions and input through an interactive discussion. And then after the workshop, participants and members of the public are able to provide additional questions, inputs, or comments by emailing the Crow team at regulatoryalignmentstudy@crow.com. The workshop will take place, as mentioned, throughout July 2024. Crow will be hosting 2 workshops for each program area, one in June and one in July. The dates and times of the workshops are displayed on the screen. Each of the program workshops will cover the same topics, providing the public 2 opportunities to attend the program workshop. You can sign up for the workshops through the study website, which we will explain in the next slide. In order to register for a public workshop, you will first need to follow the link to the study website at cdfa.ca.gov/regulatory alignment. From there, you can select the workshop you'd like to attend and click the registration link. This will take you to another webpage where you can fill out your registration information, and you should receive an email within the next few minutes from the Zoom with the Zoom meeting information to add that to your calendar. So in terms of the overall study timeline and next steps, we will be using the feedback and input gathered from the public workshops to inform our next tasks in the study, which are summarized in the boxes on the slide. To provide a brief overview of each, as mentioned in summer 2024, Crow will be hosting a series of public workshops to reconvene the agricultural industry and regulators to review initial proposals as outlined in the concept paper. From fall 2024 to winter 2025, Crow will be identifying process improvements and implementation steps to support regulatory alignment. And finally, from winter to spring 2025, Crow will be evaluating and recommending technological enhancements as they relate to our proposals. As a final outcome of the study, by November of 2025, Crow will present solutions and recommend implementation plans. This will include release of a final report. And we encourage you all to provide input and questions to the regulatory pathways discussed in the concept paper by emailing the Crow team at regulatoryalignmentstudy@crow.com. All written feedback must be submitted by July 31st, 2024. Again, we encourage you to participate in the live workshop sessions occurring throughout June and July of 2024, and you can register for the upcoming workshop sessions through the links on the study website. We will be providing videos for each program workshop that will be available on the study website as well. So if you cannot join live, you can always watch the videos after. And at this point, we have reached the end of the presentation and we'll open it up to questions. The slide presentation and the recording of this webinar will be available on the study's website as well. We will have another webinar, as mentioned, tomorrow from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m., which will share the same information as today's call. So I'm seeing a few questions in the Q&A. First question for the Crow team is, how were the 4 regulatory programs for the study selected?
I can answer that, Jamie. There was a long process at the beginning of the project. So initially, the water quality and food safety, the overall areas were selected as part of the original funding for the project. So those were initially selected. The project team, which consisted of CDFA, Crow, Water Boards, and Cali, PA, spent a lot of time early on sort of understanding and discussing which program areas sort of had the greatest impact on the ag community and where we wanted to focus the effort. So there was a lot of discussion and kind of research on the impacts of various program areas that led to us selecting those four key areas.
Thanks, Wendy. And we have another question. Where will the 6-4, so June 4th, Produce Safety Program workshop be held? And I think I can go ahead and take this question. As mentioned, the workshops will all be virtual. So there's registration links on the study website where you can register, and that's how you'll receive the Zoom meeting invite. So it'll be held virtually. And I'm not seeing any additional questions. If you do have a question, again, we encourage you to use the Q&A feature. You can type your question in. If you do have additional questions, you can always email us at regulatoryalignmentstudy@crow.com.
And there will be a second presentation. I mean, you all have attended this one, so it will be a duplicate, but if you know others who would be interested in attending, tomorrow at 5:30. So I think if there are no other questions, we can end this workshop a little bit early. Last chance, any questions for today? Thank you again. Again, we really appreciate and look forward to your input, the input you provided thus far, and input going forward as we seek to focus in on these proposals and final recommendations. So again, thank you very much, and we look forward to your continued participation.
Thank you very much, everybody.